Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Sperry, the National Adult Protective Service Association's, or NAPSA's, Executive Director. I'm so pleased to welcome you to NAPSA's 2024 World Elder Abuse Awareness event. NAPSA is a membership advocacy organization and has been supporting APS across the country and in the territories in DC since 1989. We provide a forum for sharing information, solving problems, and improving the quality of services for victims of elder and vulnerable adult mistreatment. We're currently at approximately 2,800 members and growing. A little background on World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Dr. Elizabeth Podniaks, who passed away unfortunately earlier this year, first acknowledged the World Elder Abuse Awareness Day event on June 15, 2006. She wanted to promote awareness of elder abuse and declared it, quote, one of the most unrecognized, underreported, and unaddressed issues of our day. Unfortunately, this comment still stands today, but I believe we've made some progress, and APS remains the first responder to many, if not most, reports of elder abuse. And 18 years later, we continue to bring awareness to the public health issue of elder and vulnerable adult abuse, and that NAPSA's Regional Representative Advisory Board is going to highlight the incredible work that's being done in APS across the country. The Regional Rep Advisory Board is comprised of 16 representatives from NAPSA's 8 regions, 2 from each region. Angela Rosado of Riverside County, California, does an incredible job as the chair of this board. Honestly, the regional reps are the pulse of the work NAPSA supports, and I'm thrilled that they agreed to hold this kickoff WEAAD event. It's a little early in the month, but I know there are many more events to follow this one. And I would be remiss in not thanking our sponsor for today's event, JPMorgan Chase, who will share the wonderful work they're doing to support APS and the fight against financial exploitation. So I will now pass things over to Matthew Arnstein.
Thanks, Jennifer. My name is Matt Arnstein, and I, along with Stephanie Pecchio on the call and many others at JPMorgan Chase, work to serve and protect elder and vulnerable customers each and every day. I just want to give a big thank you to Tamisha, Jen, and all of the speakers today for their hard work to make today a success. We are so proud to be the lead sponsor for NAPSA's WEAAD virtual event, and we hope you enjoy the panel discussion that I'm about to share. We know that financial institutions have a special role to help detect, prevent, and report suspected elder financial abuse. Hope you enjoy the panel.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Darius Kingsley, Head of Consumer Banking Practices at JPMorgan Chase. We're thrilled to once again be a proud sponsor of NAPSA. So I'm in charge at Chase of thinking about our elder customer segment, and in particular, I'm spending a lot of time these days on scams and financial exploitation. And our financial institutions like Chase, we work to protect and educate our customers, as well as our own employees, from being aware of financial exploitation and scams that are out there that are rapidly increasing. We help older Americans and our older customers stay safe in their financial lives, both online and offline. And what we've learned over the past several years working on this issue is that scammers and fraudsters, whether it be a stranger, an estranged adult child or other relative, or a caregiver, they're getting more sophisticated in how they try to steal older Americans' money. And we know that while many of our older customers increasingly bank online and even digitally, there's still enormous value in those face-to-face interactions that happen in our bank branches across the country. So we want to jump right into our discussion. I'd love to have my colleagues, Rob Gigante and Jonathan Morales, each give a brief overview. So Rob, do you want to describe yourself and what you do?
Sure. How's everybody doing? Happy to be here. My name is Robert Gigante, and I am in Global Security here at JPMorgan Chase. And I'm fortunate enough to head up the Vulnerable Adult Investigation Unit. We handle any investigation within the firm that relates to our 60-plus client demographic. I've got almost 60 investigators and set up in 7 cities around the United States. do about 60,000 referrals a year. And our goal is to, liaison with APS, liaison with law enforcement, prosecutors, and work with our customers to try to get them the services and help they need, in these times when the bad guys are getting really good at what they do.
Great.
But happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Jonathan.
Great. Thanks for having me, Darius. I appreciate it. So as Darius mentioned, my name is Jonathan Morales, and I am the California head of community banking. And so in that role, I lead JP Morgan Chase's financial health strategy for the state of California. So my team and I, we work to further Chase's efforts to really serve our local communities through education, outreach, really being proximate to the communities that we serve. We're already there with our banks, but it's really about bridging community banking with community building efforts that are already taking place. And so we're that conduit for the firm where we reach out, we try to provide educational services, we try to demystify banking for all of the clients that we serve throughout the communities that we participate in.
That's great. Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate it. Glad to have you both here. So Rob, I'll start with you. So for those, if it wasn't clear from your intro, what you do is as head of our vulnerable adult global security team, your folks are the individuals here at Chase who reach out to a lot of the older customers and contact them when we believe a scam is happening. So our branch bankers or maybe our operations centers may make referrals to you and your team, and then your team is the one that has a lot of the contact with the people who are in the middle of maybe a scam or an exploitation. Can you talk a bit about what you're sort of seeing? Like, what are the sort of the most common themes or trends your investigators are seeing these days?
Absolutely, yes. You're 100% correct, Darius. My folks are on the phone with our 60 plus customers every single day, all day long. And I sit with them and I hear the phone calls on both ends of them, and they're heartbreaking and they're very, very tough to deal with. And again, the bad guys are getting very good at what they do. One of the things that jumps out right away is anytime there is a sense of urgency involved in the situation. When they say there's no time, you got to act now. We need this money right away. That's certainly always a red flag, and we tell folks always slow it down and put some distance and perspective into what's happening. But that's not what the bad guys want. The bad guys want your money. They want it now. You got to wire it right away. You got to buy Bitcoin and send it to us right away. You got to buy gold right away and send it to us right away. So that sense of urgency is always a big, big indicator that there is an issue. The second thing that we see all the time is just like the old adage, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And it's a lot of these lottery scams, investment scams, things where with a little bit of money, you can make a lot of money in the back end. If it's too good to be true, that's one of the things that certainly is a problem. Technology is becoming a big part of what we're having to deal with here. The traditional elder scam is what we would call a grandparent scam, where an elderly customer gets a phone call from a child saying, "Grandma, help! I've been arrested. I need money. You got to wire money to a lawyer right away," and that's alarming to these folks. And they don't often take the time to, again, slow it down and say, "Is that my son or daughter's voice actually on the phone, or my grandchild's voice actually on the phone?" That's scary enough, and that worked for a very, very long time as it is, and it still does. But now imagine using AI and using your grandchild's actual voice to make that phone call, or even worse, their actual face to make a video call. These are the things that we're battling with technology, and it's a scary, scary thing. But again, as we said, slow it down, and we like to use safe words or code words that you can establish with your family, so that there are these situations you can drop that code word, that it's real. Earlier last week, Darius, we met with the FBI and we were talking about financial scams and whatnot, and they've got an interesting problem, which is that they're having trouble classifying these scams, because it used to be it was one kind of scam. It was, this is an investment scam, and that's it. They are now checking all the boxes. One of the things that's very big right now is called pig butchering, and it's a violent, detestable name. But the law enforcement and prosecutors use it on purpose to sort of make sure people are aware that they don't want to be the pig. And it relates to fattening up the pig before you slaughter it. And these scams, they start with something like an investment scam or a crypto scam. And it often starts with just what seems to be a misguided text message. A message from, hey, this is Steve, you still coming to the barbecue this weekend? And it starts with that. And you respond, say, hey, sorry, not Steve, you got the wrong number. And they strike the conversation from there. And before you know it, they're inviting you to invest in something. And it seems like it's too good to be true. You're making money. And then at the end of the day, there's nothing there. You're actually lost a ton of money. The FBI is having a problem classifying because the bad guys now are checking all the boxes. It starts as maybe a technology scam where they freeze your computer and say, hey, tech support, you need to pay for tech support. And then you pay for tech support, and then they say, okay, we need you to get to the give money. We're sending law enforcement. I mean, they'll send a courier to pick up money. Now that's a law enforcement impersonation scam. So they're starting they want to get all the money out of you. They used to just want a payday. Now they want to make sure payday's not enough for these folks. They want every dollar they can get. And that's what pig butchering is all about. And that's one of the most alarming things we're seeing right now.
Thanks. And so it sounds like a lot of these, it's not just the traditional tech support scams or emails, but what I'm hearing you saying is we're also getting a lot of these kind of innocent, like what seemingly innocent texts, missed connection, kind of wrong number, those sorts of like ways of starting to engage older people.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Thank you. So Jonathan, like to hear from you a bit here. So you and your team, you spend a lot of time with customers and non-customers out on the ground. So your community team goes out and you host some events for older Americans, teaching people how to, stay safe online and bank safely, sometimes at senior centers or at our community branches. When you do that, what are the topics and concerns that you're hearing?
Yeah, you know what? Great question, Darius. I would say there are definitely some general themes. One of the things that I love most about what we do is no two events are alike. Like you're always going to get whatever is on the hearts and minds of people kind of going through it. But, I would say thematically, just like Rob touched on, there's a lot of concerns with technology. Like first and foremost, how can I keep myself safe when I'm doing things online? I think there's a huge misperception out there that older Americans aren't really digitally active. That's not true. Like that's factually incorrect. A lot of people are out there. And I think it's a great way. It has a lot of different benefits for people when they're accessing information or just staying in touch with their family. But with that comes the added exposure, right? So there's a lot of risk associated with it. You're on social media. I think just a lot of the ways that social media works, it allows people to learn kind of your habits, learn a little bit more about you, makes you a little bit more susceptible to potential scams. So you have to just be a little bit more knowledgeable of it. I would say secondly, it really comes down to it, and it's sad to say, but like there's really not someone in their ecosystem that they can trust. And when we start talking about that, I would point out to the fact that AARP does a really great job of highlighting the fact that there's a lot of what they call solo aging taking place right now, where people aren't necessarily married, they're widowed, they never had children. There's a lot of different pitfalls that go on as you start to age and you really don't feel like there's a circle of trust around you. And so who do you go to help manage your finances or ask those questions that maybe you're a little embarrassed to ask a financial institution just to get some access to information? And so that's definitely something thematic that we hear. I would say thirdly, how do we get just simple access to tips? Like from a reputable organization. There's so much information out there. It's like, how do we keep it simple? How do we keep it actionable? How do we make it so that people aren't necessarily overwhelmed with the litany of information that's out there? You definitely don't want to scare anyone when you're teaching them about what exists, but you also want to be a truth teller. And so I think that there's just that general notion. And I would say, Darius, like on a final note, it really, as you age, I think there's a lot of stories that people hear about losing control of their own finances. Like asking for help makes me more susceptible to someone that may be in my inner circle, that may be a family member that's going to say, hey, you know what, maybe I need to take control of your finances. And again, it kind of goes back to that whole trust factor is, do I really have people around me that I trust? But I certainly need that if I'm going to be in a situation where asking for help may actually mean that I lose control of my finances. And so I would say those are the four that I hear the most, Darius. Definitely a lot more out there, but we can touch on that through this conversation. Darius, if I may, I think there's the work we do, but also there's a lot of what you do for us within this institution. I think you go out to our branches, you hear from bankers firsthand, you talk to them about the interactions they have. I would love to hear from you what role you think our bankers play in helping protect our older adults and their money.
Yeah, absolutely, Jonathan. And thanks for the work that you and your team do out in those community centers and senior centers. And so to your point, for those listening in, so one of the things that I'm in charge of is thinking about the education in our branches, right? Do we have the right training for our bankers? How can we teach them to spot when something's gone awry or help these older customers when they come in? So, as more and more people are banking digitally or online, this generation of sort of older generation, still many of them still love to come in and talk to our bankers, which is great. Often they'll bank digitally, but then something will seem a little out of pattern or a little odd to them, and then they'll come into the branch. So they're not necessarily in branches all the time. But so we pushed out training. We have annual training for all of our bankers in all of our branches. Put together by AARP. We're really happy to have partnered with them. It's called AARP Bank Safe Training. And what it does is it teaches our bankers to sort of see the signs of something amiss. Be aware of kind of like the signs that someone is being scammed. And often it's hard to tell, right? Because people come into branches all the time. They want to withdraw money. We tell a lot of our older customers, as you get older, you may want to add a loved one, a family member as a joint account holder. So like that sort of behavior isn't unusual. And so what we have to do is sort of teach our bankers to kind of ask a lot of questions. The questioning is often what helps, discover that something is a little awry. Maybe one of our older customers has come in, they have a younger family member with them. They're going to add this younger family member to the account. We teach our bankers to kind of, again, ask a lot of questions, be observant. Maybe you see the arm of the younger person pressuring the older person. Maybe the older customer seems kind of nervous about it all. Is that just natural nerves because I don't come into the branch that often and I know I'm getting older? Or is it because I'm being pressured into doing something? And so what that leads to is we really are trying to get our bankers to ask like more and more questions. Sometimes it does probably border a little bit on the like nosy. We definitely have a lot of older people who kind of, why are you, what do you care? Why are you asking all these questions of me? I know what I'm doing. It's my money. We hear that kind of reaction a lot. But a lot of that is there because we're really trying to sort of push the conversation. And you never know what people say. And we really we want to make sure that like this transaction, taking your money out into a cashier's check, that like, what's that for? All of these can help dictate whether or not like we should, maybe give a warning to Rob's team, and send what we call a referral, an elder and vulnerable adult person team to maybe check out. So I think that's what we're just trying to get that branch to where our bankers can not only spot scams or exploitation kind of as it's happening or before it happens, but then also being able to talk to the customers and tell them like what to look out for and help educate our customers as to the sort of signs of a scam that they see. So, hey, Rob, and so while I'm on that, like referring things that look particularly suspicious to, you and your team, one of the things then that your team does is after you work with the customer, if you spot something, you will often, just depending on state law or the state or the situation, your team, I know, is the one that makes referrals to APS. So with that referral, like, how do you expect that to grow or change in the years to come? Because like we know that we're seeing, and obviously as the boomers are retiring, this bulge of increase in elder population.
Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned at the top, we get about 60,000 referrals a year, and that's a lot. Our folks are busy, and on all of those, about what we call the mandatory states, mandatory jurisdiction, we action those within 24 hours. So we get them, we're on them, we're making contact, we're reviewing accounts, we're speaking with the customers. The most difficult thing, and I'm sure it's not a surprise to anybody on this call, is that each of the jurisdictions can be different. They all could be different in terms of what they want to see, when they want to see it, how they want to see it, and what the actual details that we submit are. There's some movement from Washington right now that maybe someday we'll have a little bit more of a unified reporting structure and unified rules and regulations kind of thing. But until that happens, a big part of what we do is, okay, what state is this customer in? What jurisdiction is this customer in? And be able to sort of give the best referral we can to APS. Now, you're right. It's a state mandatory thing. We have to check that box. But here at JP Morgan, that's not enough for us. Like, we really truly want to help these customers the best we can. So we speak to them. We send these referrals to APS. We try to put as much information in there as we can. We're happy to, within the privacy laws, speak with the APS workers and the people that are the boots on the ground out there really getting the services to these customers to help them with whatever they need, give them whatever information we legally can give them. When we've spoken to them, we can corroborate stories. That type of thing is just helpful in really, doing what's best for the customer at the end of the day. And so that's a lot about what we sort of focus on. And we get these good referrals. We're able to push that information out, as well as the law enforcement when they're engaged, prosecutors when they're engaged, and really try to, take care of the customers, get them the services they need. If there's ever an opportunity, sort of, if they've been scammed, because they are the victims, if they've been scammed, try to get whatever money back we can through wires and whatnot, and then assist law enforcement and APS and prosecutors with getting the bad guys. So really, it's full circle, and we want to work with APS. They are partners in this, just like they're partners. You and I, Darius, are partners, and Jonathan, we're partners. APS is our partner in this and really doing what's best for the customer. And that's one of the things that we always focus. We want to build those relationships, deepen them through communication back and forth. And until there's that unified thing coming out of Washington, a unified structure coming out of Washington, we're going to do everything we can to get the specific jurisdictions exactly what they want, when they want it, how they want it, and so that they can get out there and work with our customers.
Got it. Good. Okay, thank you. So let me just change tack slightly. So I had mentioned, as I was talking about like our branch interaction, sort of customer face-to-face, the importance of education, both through educating our bankers as well as customer education. So Rob and Jonathan, like Rob, your team spends a lot of time talking to our customers or their families when they're in the middle, unfortunately, usually of a scam or some sort of exploitation situation. And Jonathan, your team is out there, again, senior centers, community centers, often talking to, a wide group of people who have concerns about this. So when talking about that communication, like Rob, let's start with you first. What have you found to be effective?
So we found that fear-based messaging doesn't really work. Right. And it's they're at a stage in their life where they've got a lot of knowledge, and it's hard for them to come to terms with the fact that they may have been scammed. And so my team is made up of ex-law enforcement, social service workers, APS workers, branch managers, all people think. And one thing that a lot of different jobs come to us and join our team. And one thing they all have in common is they're excellent at talking to people. And they're all about trying to get through to people when they don't want to be gotten through to. One of the things that we find is extremely helping is to sort of bring them along and let them sort of figure it out for themselves. And there's a ton of tools out there that we use, like, for example, Google is one of them. If there's a unique sort of scam going on and they refuse to believe it, we say, well, take a second and Google it and let me know what you find, kind of thing. Because as Jonathan, you mentioned, they are very tech savvy. They are on the computer. They are on the social media platforms. So they're very capable to come. Right now, they're just blinded by it and they don't see it as a scam. But at some point, like, you can help them come out of it. The same thing with the pig butchering. One of the main parts of pig butchering is an investment scam where it's a reach out, oh, mistext, oh, sorry, I was trying to get somebody else. Oh, you seem like a really nice person, and you start up a conversation. Eventually, it's like, oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm an investment manager. Oh, I'd like to have some tips or whatever. And they have fake investment schemes. They have fake investment apps. So to you, it looks like you've made millions of dollars. And a lot of times our response is, yeah, you might be, all right, great. I'm very happy for you that you did make that money. Do me a favor, try to take some of that money out. And this is what they're going to tell you. They're going to tell you, oh, you got to pay tax on it. You got to send me $50,000 in cash before you can get that money out. And sure enough, they call us back. We've had people curse us out on the phone because how dare you, you don't know what you're talking about, only to call us back 2 or 3 days later and be like, you know what, thank you so much. I had no idea I was in what I was into. So, it really takes a lot of patience. And it really takes our folks who are skilled at talking to people, because it's not the same person isn't going to respond to the same thing. There is no playbook for this. You have to be able to talk to them back and forth, see what's resonating with them, and use the best hack to get them to realize what's happening. And once they do, they're all over it, and they're very, very thankful. That's a good part of it, especially since so much of the bad guys are coaching these folks. They go into the branches and they know what to say. They know what the answers are. And that's why our branch folks do such a great job of asking those questions and going past the first level answers to sort of dig a little deeper. And when they see something, they say something, they get it over to us. We get on it within 24 hours, and then hook up with ABS as quickly as possible to try to get these folks the help that they need. Slow it down, have them think critically, and that's what it's all about.
No, thank you. So Jonathan, love to hear your perspective, because you come into it, your team comes into it from a very different point of view in these, larger group settings. A lot of people haven't been scanned, but they're nervous.
Yeah, we have a unique opportunity to get to people before they become victims. And so, I think you touched on it. I think Rob touched on it. What I hope everybody's taking from this dialogue is that it's really important and critical to meet customers where they are, and to constantly think of new ways to connect with those clients, right? And so there's a lot of different channels that we have available to us to highlight the importance of identifying and reporting scams. One recent story that I just love to share with you all is that, in Arizona, we had a standout community manager who worked with the sheriff's office of Sun City, Arizona. Now, Sun City, a lot of older Americans live there. And really the premise of it was, hey, why don't we work together with a law enforcement agency to talk about some of the different ways to stay safe. And in this specific arena, it was stay safe online. Got a lot of great feedback. It wasn't unique to our Chase customers. It was just unique to the residents of that community. And so what we found was in having that dialogue, it reinforced how important it is to have the right people speaking on these things that are subject matter experts. You heard Rob talk about his team and all of the different walks of life that they've come from to really come together for this team. The premise being listening and having a great conversation. But when you're that client, who you attribute subject matter expertise may look different. So, me coming in and being Jonathan, a banker by trade, that's fine. Obviously, I'm aware of financial scams to that extent, but hearing law enforcement gave them a stronger sense of relatability. And so I thought that there was just something beautiful there. And so, I think Rob mentioned meeting people when, how, and where they want to be met in any way that you can. But I also think it's just important to understand there's really no quick fix for this. I think just as much as Rob highlighted that people are being coached on how to scam others, how to scam our elderly Americans, like it really is something that we need to understand. It's not unique to older Americans. It's not unique to seniors. People are victimized every single day by financial scammers. So just recognizing we have to continue to reinvent ourselves, continue to partner with one another, with different agencies so that we can do what's best for all of the clients that we serve. And for anyone that's listening to this conversation that has a loved one, like I would just say, get involved, be an active participant in your friends and your family's lives so you can help identify those signs of exploitation that Darius, you were covering earlier, that we try to teach our bankers about. And so, those are just a couple of things that I would add.
No, that's great. And I love that advice to get involved. Like, I think a lot of, family members, younger family members don't do that, and often you're nervous and it's mom or dad, and, or whatever, your uncle, and like, it just, the seniority, the family dynamics are often that, younger people can't push, but you really need to. And so, hey, Rob, is there one, before we wrap up, is there kind of one bit of advice as well you would pass on to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've all touched on it. For me, it's always the same all the time: contact and communication. right? I mean, if any one of the three of us on this call or anybody on this call got something out of $1,000, that hurts, right? Maybe it's not a night out or a vacation. But these folks, sometimes it's a question between then, do I get medicine or food? They are on these limited incomes. They're not going to make that money back. And a lot of times they don't stop at $1,000. It's 10,000. It's 100,000. It's a life savings. So contact and communications, as I say it all the time, call your mother. She's waiting for your call. Talk to her about this stuff. Tell her the stories that you're hearing about this stuff, and let it resonate a little bit so that when they do get reached out, maybe something things that says, you know what, let me slow down. Let me call somebody. Let me ask. A great opportunity today on the phone that they're pitching will be a great opportunity tomorrow after you talk to a professional and been able to sort of corroborate it. So contact and communication is always the big thing I talk about.
That's great. So thank you both. You both do have a super important job here at Chase and helping protect our older customers. It's unfortunately, it isn't just up to the three of us. It's, and Rob, super glad you're talking to the FBI and, the work that you do, Jonathan, your team working together with senior centers, for example, like this needs to be a group effort that all of us, I think, need to rally around. Unfortunately, it's going to be a long journey protecting older Americans and their savings. And I will wrap it up with that, but thank you both for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us, Darius.
You bet. Bye all.
All right, again to JP Morgan for generously sponsoring this important event. I love that you're out and about providing education and outreach, and with over 60,000 referrals a year, that's really important. So you are indeed a very important partner in the fight against financial exploitation. At this point, to pass the baton over to Sheila Rosado, the chair of NAPSA's Regional Rep Advisory Board.
Hi all. It's a pleasure to join you today for NAPSA's WEAAD event. June 15th is a day where globally communities come together to promote a better understanding of abuse and neglect of older persons. Our regional representatives who are here today are part of NAPSA's Regional Representative Advisory Board. The RRAB exists to create a system of regional representation that supports APS programs nationwide and improves communication across APS programs regarding NAPSA's activities and resources. The RRAB also tracks and informs the NAPSA board about challenges, opportunities, emerging trends, and the needs of APS programs. Each of our regional representatives stand as advocates and leaders in our field and support NAPSA's mission, which is to strengthen APS programs in order to improve the safety and quality of life of APS clients who experience abuse. We also seek to fulfill NAPSA's vision, which is for every state and local APS office to have the financial resources and professional expertise to offer person-centered responses in cases of adult abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and financial exploitation. Additionally, our reps hold regional meetings on a regular basis to share resources, best practices, training opportunities, and important information regarding issues surrounding our field and those we serve. If you're interested in learning more about those regional meetings, I will put in the chat the email address to contact NAPSA to get more information. Thank you. All right, so our first NAPSA region who will be up to speak about highlight their area, it would be Northeast 1, and Rachel and Nancy are with us. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon in the Northeast. Thank you for joining us. My name's Rachel Lakin. I'm the APS administrator for the state of New Hampshire, and I'm also a co-chair the regional Northeast 1 region with Nancy Alterio. Nancy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Alterio. I'm the executive director of the Massachusetts Disabled Persons Protection Commission. We are an APS organization that investigates abuse against adults with disabilities between the ages of 18 to 59. And I share the co-chair role with Rachel chairing the Northeast one. So thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. And what we wanted to just talk about a little bit today is just to introduce our region to you, which is the New England states, Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut. And because we're small geographically in a sense, but we share borders with one another. In some of our states, for instance, such as New Hampshire, we share 3 borders with other states. And so what we have found is that our APS clients they travel among the states. And so sometimes we may be serving somebody in New Hampshire to find out that they've gone to stay with their daughter who's in Massachusetts or something. And because of that, we came up with what's called a memorandum of agreement. And we wanted just to highlight that a little bit for you folks today. And what we found is that the protection that can be provided by the participating agencies, and all 6 of our states participate in this, to the victims with disabilities or who are elderly, is that we can help identify the appropriate agency within the Northeast states that we would then be able to contact and make referrals to. The MOA promotes and encourages interstate cooperation and collaboration on behalf of those individuals with disabilities or who are vulnerable or elderly, who experience abuse, neglect, or exploitation. The goals of the MOA are to provide protection, treatment, and continuity of care for those persons that are served by APS. It also ensures prompt and effective reporting and investigation of allegations related to the abuse, neglect, or exploitations. It also enhances and promotes interstate communication and cooperation, and it increases public awareness. And all of what we do with the MOA, it's subject to each state's statutory authority. So we are able to help another state as long as it is within our statutory ability, something that we would normally be doing anyway with our own APS clients. So we recognize that the importance of cooperation and communication between the participating agencies when dealing with the cases of cross-jurisdictional abuse. We've identified individuals to act as liaisons and to help facilitate communication among those cases when it's necessary. Each liaison agrees to respond to inquiries as soon as possible and to help get people connected with the right agencies within the neighboring state. The state agency liaisons agree to share information regarding eligibility, jurisdictional requirements, and the services provided by their respective participating agencies with the state agency liaisons from other participating agencies. As permitted by federal law and state law in the state holding information, the state agency liaison shall, upon request, disclose to the state agency's liaison in the participating agency investigating the allegation of abuse all files and records from prior investigations involving the same victim, perpetrator, or complainant. The state agency liaison shall do all that they can to ensure that the rights of the victims are protected during investigations and that the appropriate protective services are provided in a timely manner. In disclosing information pursuant to this provision, the confidentiality guidelines applicable to the participating agency making the disclosure shall be followed. We just believe by bringing multidisciplinary partners together, we're going to help reduce abuse and neglect. And so we just find the MOA to be very helpful in those situations where we do have people that travel from state to state, and it's worked pretty well for us. The other things that we wanted to just talk about was some of the things that we've been working on here in the Northeast in general, across the region. And we were able to do this, some of the things I'm going to highlight because of the monies that were made available through the SRSA grant and the ARPA funds. Many of our states have been updating or rebuilding their document and case management systems to create more efficient tracking and communication. We've been creating and implementing online reporting platforms to make it easier for mandated reporters and others to report abuses. We've been providing professional development opportunities to APS staff and allied professionals, which include comprehensive forensic interviewing training, including training on interviewing victims who are not able to speak. We are taking part in state and national conferences, such as the annual conference that NAPSA hosts. And last year it was in Boston. So we had quite a contingency from the Northeast that was able to attend that. We are utilizing learning management sites and creating online training opportunities to help onboard staff more efficiently and to teach others to recognize and report and to respond to abuse. We've been creating apps to educate persons with disabilities to recognize, report, and respond to abuses. We're creating an app to provide victims with disabilities and other techniques for self-care. And many of us are rebuilding websites and creating and implementing public awareness campaigns to bring awareness to the victimizations of persons with disabilities and older adults, and to provide solutions to stop and to address it within each of our respective states. I want to thank everybody for attending the conference today, and we look forward to hearing what others are doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel and Nancy. Appreciate it. Our next region is Northeast 2. Alan and Mario are on to join us.
Hi, I'm Alan Lawitz. I was New York State's APS administrator until my retirement after several years of serving as an attorney on APS-related issues. Mario?
Yes, and my name's Mario Werzesin, Administrator for Adult Services and Adult Protective Services for Montgomery County, Maryland, one of 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland. And I am a co-regional rep for NAPSA's Northeast Region 2 with Alan. Northeast Region 2 consists of the District of Columbia, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and the Virgin Islands. We have a terrific group of colleagues in NE2, and we've had some very interesting and quite varied regional meetings in the past couple of years. Alan?
These have included a lot of topics that directly impact APS and those in related fields. For example, how states are using federal grant funds under the COVID Relief Act and other programs, what trainings are available to APS under NAPSA's new National APS Training Center, and what other types of training APS would like to add, what resources are available to assist and compensate victims of elder abuse crimes, what is contained in ACL's proposed regulations on APS, and how these could impact APS operations. We've discussed innovative programs to prevent and address scams of APS clients. We've talked about how APS works with clients, animal shelters, and others in addressing issues that may arise from the pets of the client. We had a great discussion with a very experienced, soon-to-retire APS supervisor discussing her career, her evident passion for helping clients, and reflecting on the growth of APS in the course of her career. Our Zoom meetings have been a great way for APS and others in allied fields to connect with others who do similar work and to get updates, learn about interesting webinars or training, to learn about research that may inform the work that we do, and make contacts that will help us do our work. We share our challenges, we share our successes. If you work in our region, we hope you will reach out and join us. And now back to Mario.
Thank you, Alan. So in Montgomery County, Maryland, our Elder Vulnerable Adult Abuse Task Force will be hosting its 14th annual Older Adult Safety Forum themed a longevity-ready community in honor of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. That's happening on Tuesday of next week. Last year, we had over 400 to attend. It was a hybrid event, and it was held at the largest senior center in our county, with other local senior centers viewing through viewing parties on a simulcast Zoom. This year, we have a similar template, and we have for our keynote our county state attorney, and we'll also have family testimony regarding a fraud case that we were involved with. as well as the input of this family member on the importance of really remaining socially connected. We have 20 exhibitors that are expected, many of which are members of the task force and our partners. In addition, we try to have a little bit of fun with some music, yoga, and of course, a free box lunch. The governor and we have a joint county council executive proclamation that will be read by our director of aging and our chief of aging and disability services. We'll also have a panel comprised of the task force, law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire rescue, adult protective services, and others. However, we have an exciting challenge that we put out to our older adults in the county, and that was for skits with regard to some of the topics that we are discussing today, be it fraud, be it social isolation, and really the importance of staying connected. And to that end, I have an example skit for all of you.
Hello. Hello, Grandma. Hello, Grandpa.
Need the video.
Hi, Mario. The screen's not sharing. If you wouldn't mind sharing. Thank you.
With him in it. Hello. Hello, Grandma. Hello, Grandpa. Leave your kid here down in Tampa. Car was hijacked with him in it. And he needs some money quick, don't waste a minute. Lost his wallet with his money, and he won't call Dad or Mommy. Hopes to be home before dinner. And he says he even thinks he's looking thinner. There's a large man getting chummy. We can stop in with some money. And some old man thinks he's pretty. You should hurry if you're feeling any pity. Now we don't want this to scare ya, but he can't find his inhaler. Just remember, Cousin Marty disappeared until they sent a searching party. He's so afraid to be alone. So don't delay, don't have down. It's time for you to care. He might get beaten on a dare. Bring him home. I promise you're his only choice. He'll tell you by the lost his voice. Oh, please don't make him stay. He's been here one whole day. Here's Grandpa, darling Grandma. Send a check for money order. Help him come home, now not later. You'll be doing him a very special favor. Wait a minute, someone's knocking. We have cops here. This is shocking. We're arrested. Why surprising? Kindly disregard this call since we've been lying.
Elder abuse and elder financial crimes plague our nation and this jurisdiction on a daily basis. If you receive a phone call like was discussed, it's imperative and important that you contact your local police department right away. It is really easy to get in touch with senior citizens and other folks via email, via phone, and other forms of electronic communication, where suspects like this are attempting to take advantage of you, take your money and other items. If they call you and they say that they need you to contact them right away, or that one of your friends or family members are about to be hurt or are being hurt, hang up and call us right away. We're here to help. We will do anything we can to make sure that your friends and family are safe and that people like this taken to jail, much like it was shown in this video.
Alan, you're next.
Okay, that was great, Mario. Finally, I want to highlight the continuing expansion and enrichment of a major intervention to combat elder abuse in New York State. the Enhanced Multidisciplinary Team, or EMDT. EMDTs use a collaborative approach to help investigate and address elder abuse cases. Team members include APS, aging services, law enforcement and DAs, financial services providers, health providers, and others. The teams are enhanced by access to forensic accountants, geriatric mental health professionals, and civil legal services. APS brings the largest number of cases to the EMDT. The program is now paid for by both the New York State Office for the Aging state funds and Federal Victim of Crime Act funds through the New York State Office of Victim Services. Lifespan of Greater Rochester runs the overall program, and there's a network of regional hub organizations that in turn oversee the individual county or New York City EMDT coordinators. And the New York City Council provides additional funding for the New York City-based EMDTs. The EMDT program began as an 8-county pilot in 2012, funded by a federal grant. In 2016, state funding sustained the original sites and allowed for expansion to 13 counties. In 2017, a combination of federal and state funds grew the program to 39 counties. And as of today, this expansion has progressed to 60 of the 62 counties in New York State having operational EMDTs. The EMDTs do a lot of work. In the year 2023 alone, there were over 400 EMDT meetings held, and they've done a really good job in getting court-ordered or agreed restitution for vulnerable elders who are victimized by financial exploitation. Over 723,000 in 2023, and over 4.8 million since the inception of the program. And studies have shown that APS and other team members have a high degree of satisfaction with the results of the EMDT. And they also believe that the EMDT has helped develop the partnerships and close working relationships needed to effectively address complex cases of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. The New York State Office of Children and Family Services Bureau of Adult Services has also played an important role in heading up multidisciplinary trainings of financial professionals to assist reporting to APS and banks. The Bureau of Adult Services also developed, with forensic accountant Karen Weber, the Financial Exploitation Suite of Tools, the FEIST, which helps APS investigate complex financial exploitation cases and access forensic accounting services to supply important evidence to the EMDT, to law enforcement, and to the courts. So a shout out for some great work being done in the Empire State. Thank you very much, and I'm very proud to be with Team APS. Back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ellen and Mario. All right, we will move on to the Central Region. We have Reps Carmen and Heidi with us.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Angela. And we did partner actually with APS with Northeast too on several meetings. So that was a good experience too. So good afternoon, NAPSA members and adult protection colleagues and all of our APS allies. We're so glad you joined us this afternoon in celebration of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. I'm Carmen Castaneda. I'm the program manager of Hennepin County Adult Protection Services, which is in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Heidi Turner-Stone and I jointly serve as the regional reps for the NAPSA Central Region states, which include Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Ohio, and Wisconsin. We're pleased to present the reports from the Central Region that reflect APS best practices. We want to highlight their accomplishments and success stories of our 8 member states. Our Zoom background represents the state seals and the state flags of our member states. We're going to hear from Heidi after I get through with reporting on some of our states. I'm going to start with Iowa, who sent me 4 pages of successes. And I had to edit it down for this presentation, but they did a marvelous job. So Iowa Adult Protective Services works collaboratively with the Elder Abuse Prevention and Awareness Specialists at their local area agencies on aging. Iowa APS provided a dozen examples of successful outcomes in bringing safety and stability to maltreated dependent adults, as well as to persons at risk who did not meet Iowa's code definition for services through APS. These examples included helping clients move to housing with additional services, eviction of unwanted abusers, cleanup of hoarded homes and outdoor properties, assistance with bill paying, and coordinating services to help older adults stay independent in their homes. Interventions from partnership agencies afforded legal representation in court proceedings, arrest of abusers by law enforcement, assistance in obtaining Medicaid, revocation of powers of attorney not in service to the older adult, support to caregivers, and educational programs to inform the public on identifying elder abuse and resources for assistance. The area agencies on aging have been especially helpful in providing special funding for home repairs and home delivered meals, decluttering, medications, and assistance for past rental payments. Over the last year, here are some of the accomplishments from the state of Minnesota. Tribal nations received the first what will be annual state adult protection program grants to support culturally based response to maltreatment for tribal members. A new pilot was launched to support dignity and safety for adults referred to APS by strengthening coordination with the area agencies on aging for service outcomes to stop, reduce risk, or prevent maltreatment. 350 adult protection professionals chose to attend orientation to anti-racism and unconscious bias training in partnership with the Minnesota Department of Human Services Office of Equity and Inclusion. This represents over 80% of the APS workforce in Minnesota that attended. The Department of Human Services and local APS leaders in nearly every state, every county in the state, met to review data in support of statewide equity and consistency in adult protective services. Through focused efforts, 25% more adults in Minnesota received an adult protection response to support the adult living in safety and dignity. A new APS case closure letter was developed to support trauma-informed service response and prevention of maltreatment reoccurrence. I'm going to talk a bit about Hennepin County, which is in Minnesota too. So on June 13th, the Minnesota Elder Justice Center is hosting a day-long conference to recognize World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Hennepin County Adult Protection has been invited to present a workshop at the conference on engagement strategies when working with cases of self-neglect. APS staff and supervisors will explore approaches for facilitating engagement, common practitioner errors, examples of engaging clients and supports, and provide practical tips and strategies to minimize resistance by our clients and enhance outcomes. Hennepin County APS also will present this workshop at the NAPSA conference in Albuquerque, New Mexico in September, so we invite you to join us there too. Finally, for Missouri, Missouri's adult abuse multidisciplinary teams are the best practice in addressing adult abuse, neglect, self-neglect, or exploitation, but they're not currently in use statewide in Missouri, only pilot projects right now. Through the use of federal funding, Missouri APS is encouraging the expanded use of MDTs throughout Missouri by providing resources, support, training, and technical assistance to counties interested in using the MDT approach. Missouri APS is pursuing outreach activities to educate professionals in the aging network of what adult abuse MDTs are and their usefulness in addressing abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and exploitation. Before this project, there were only 2 working MDTs in Missouri. As a result of the project, Missouri now has 7 currently functioning MDTs, 4 that are close to starting up, and 15 that have shown interest in starting an MDT in their county. I now turn it over to Heidi Turner-Stone to introduce herself and to review the accomplishments of the other states in our NAPSA Central region. Heidi.
Hi, I'm Heidi Turner-Stone, and I am the Section Chief for Adult Protective Services in the great state of Ohio. But I want to tell you some of the other cool things that are happening in the Central region. I'll start off with Illinois. The Illinois Department on Aging, IDOA, received a grant from the Administration on Community Living to launch a training simulation program for APS workers and supervisors. The simulation program was launched in May of 21 after having to pivot from a face-to-face model to a virtual model due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The simulation program takes place at a residential simulation lab that is set up as a home. Simulation consists of using standardized patients who portray an alleged victim and an alleged abuser. A proxy holds and controls the camera so that the participant is able to instruct the proxy while directing the camera up, down, or left and right to view the entire home. Participants walk through the following scenarios: calling the reporter back, an initial face-to-face contact, and individual formal interviews with both the alleged victim and alleged abuser. IDOA partnered with the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign to collect data on the model, and they found that caseworkers and supervisors alike feel more confident about working in APS after attending the simulation. To date, there have been 40 simulations held with 314 participants being trained. IDOA also has an APS law enforcement and legal professional toolkit. This toolkit was created for the Illinois legal professional audience with a focus on law enforcement and attorneys. IDOA encourages trainers or individuals of these professions to use the toolkit as a training, reference, research, or learning tool. IDOA encourages users to share the guide with appropriate professionals who may benefit from learning how best to serve adults who have experienced abuse, neglect, and exploitation. The toolkit contains resources for law enforcement and informative webinar links for all legal professions, and it can be found on IDOA's website. Michigan's been very busy too, but first let's talk a little bit about what they're going to be doing for WEAAD. In Michigan for WEAAD, Michigan Adult Services staff will be stepping up and challenging themselves with a walking challenge between May 15 and June 15, with an optional 5K walk-run on June 13 at the local county office sites. There will also be a 5K run for central office staff that will end at Michigan State Capitol. As staff do the challenge, they're asked to think and talk about what elder abuse is, and to think about what they can do to help raise awareness of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Here's some more examples of the successes that Michigan APS staff have had. Heather Otsema is the lead APS investigator on hoarding cases. She teams up with the Grand Rapids Hoarding Task Force, which is made up of Code Compliance, Grand Rapids Police, and other community partners. Together, they took on the Grandview Senior Apartment Complex to eradicate bed bugs and address some of the most difficult apartments. 10 to 12 apartments were treated in total. Heather coordinated with organizers to declutter, clean, and prep for treatment. Once given the all clear, she assisted with moving out the old beds and the delivery of new mattresses and other needed items. Heather's efforts, along with the efforts of the Grand Rapids Task Force, Grandview Apartment Management, and other organizers, made a huge impact on so many lives, and as a result, the complex was not condemned and displacement of 9 floors of seniors was avoided. In our profession, where legal intervention is typically a last resort used to remove one's rights, here's an incredible story of a young lady's freedom being legally restored. Mike Worth, adult services worker in Gladwin County, Michigan, was working with a 31-year-old woman who was under the destructive control and influence of her legal guardian and biological mother. The mother was preventing the daughter from getting adequate substance abuse treatment, medical care, supportive services, and there was reason to believe she may have been sex trafficking her daughter. After a long investigation that included an extensive psychological evaluation, this vulnerable adult was not only released from her harmful legal guardian, but her personal freedom was completely restored as she was deemed competent by a respected psychologist and probate court judge. It was Mike's diligence, intuitiveness, testimony, and determination that led to a court decision that this client was no longer in need of a legal guardian. She now has the freedom to conduct her own financial affairs, determine where to live, seek medical care, and consent to supportive services. Finally, in Michigan, APS in Gratiot County received a referral on a client that was abandoned and homeless after her family left her in a deplorable camping trailer at a park and ride near the highway. APS responded immediately and transferred her to a hotel for emergency temporary shelter while attaining clothing and food at the Salvation Army and local grocery store. The client wished to return to Shiawassee County, where she previously lived, and APS was able to locate affordable housing there, where the APS agency in that county seamlessly took over the case. The client now has a phone, receives Meals on Wheels, and has established a relationship with a primary care physician, an optometrist, and mental health services. Now, here in Ohio, we've been doing quite a bit as well at both the state and county levels. At the state level, we've begun working with the Ohio State University to develop our first ever quality assurance and technical assistance process. This process will allow us the opportunity to ensure consistent and quality services across the state's APS program. We've also been able, with the use of federal funds, to provide more training opportunities for APS staff. We held our first ever APS conference and have partnered with other organizations to expand on upcoming conferences. We've also launched a huge public awareness campaign that has had a strong response and will continue with a big push to inform mandated reporters during the entire month of June. As part of our public awareness and education efforts, we participate in Senior Day at the Ohio State Fair, where we've been able to reach over 1,000 people in a day. At the local level, counties have been busy improving collaboration among county agencies, enhancing their I-teams, and have established more coherent relationships between long-term ombudsman's offices, local Medicaid offices, APS, and other community service providers such as area agencies on aging. They've used federal dollars to improve access to technology and the internet for clients to assist with issues related to isolation, and have provided for better remote working situations for their staff. Many counties are doing their own public awareness campaigns and are targeting those areas where there are issues of underreporting. We would like to thank the workers, supervisors, administrators, and other supportive staff in the Central States region for their hard work and dedication. The work you do is invaluable. Although we were unable to present on the activities of all the members of the region, what is presented here is representative of so much of what is happening in our area of the U.S. to assist vulnerable adults. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Heidi and Carmen. Now we're going to move on to Jennifer, who will be talking about the Central region briefly.
All right. Yes, I'm representing. I live in Delaware, but I'm a mountain region person for the sake of this. So the mountain region has also been busy. I've got some highlights here from around that region. The interview for decisional abilities training was provided in 4 of their states: North Dakota, South Dakota, or 3, Dakota, South Dakota, and Kansas. Wyoming formed a partnership with area agencies on aging to enhance existing services for elderly, disabled, and vulnerable adults statewide. I'm hearing that more and more. Wyoming also initiated enhanced data collection and measures to provide information to stakeholders and legislative partners. So really getting that advocacy out there. South Dakota contracted to complete a program evaluation to review laws, policies, and staffing practices, conduct interviews with staff, conduct interviews with stakeholders, and evaluate current best practices in comparable states to create recommendations and align with the South Dakota APS and the National Voluntary Consensus Guidelines. They created a training plan and recommendations for improving services and implementing best practice. That sounds like it was a very big program evaluation. Kansas piloted a mental health intensive case management service for APS clients in rural Kansas. The program's voluntary, and APS clients receive mental health support, assistance applying for benefits, a caregiver support group, and other services. Kansas also initiated an adult decision-making learning collaborative to discuss alternatives to guardianship. The collaboration brought together diverse stakeholders for intentional conversations that raised awareness about a continuum of support for individuals with impaired decisional abilities. On to Nebraska. Nebraska completed an elder vulnerable adult mediation pilot project in 2 of their regions. In 2023, Nebraska APS executed contracts with Concord and Nebraska Mediation Centers to offer mediation services to families struggling to find agreement on caring for their vulnerable adult family members. And now up to Montana. Montana APS partnered with Montana Department of Justice to allocate $354,000 of funding to hire an elder justice prosecutor and a specialized investigator. Before this collaboration, Montana had never had a specialized prosecutor or investigator for elder abuse crimes. The grant funding allowed the DOJ to hire Mike Fanning, an elder justice prosecutor, and Chris, an investigator, for 2 years. The best success came last legislative session in 2023 when both positions were made permanent in the state due to their efforts to create the positions. That's fantastic. The launch of the Colorado Older Adults Financial Justice Coalition aimed at targeted collaboration among the dispersed responders to elder financial abuse in Colorado, including law enforcement, financial services, APS, human services programs, and more. And also in Colorado, they have done an evaluation of their current risk and safety assessment tools to identify improvements for efficiency, equity, and quality of services of the needs assessment practices there. So that is a lot going on in the mountain region. And now we are going to go back to Angela, right?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer.
Okay.
Okay, so next up is Southeast region. Kathy and Renee are here today. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kathy.
I'm getting it. I'm getting it.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kathy Bahadur. I'm the APS section manager for Georgia's APS program. And today I am presenting with Renee. Renee, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute. We are co-representatives for the Southeast states, and we will present some great WEAAD activities happening across the Southeast and how the funding APS receive help not only our APS clients, but our APS team members. Next slide. Here are the states that represent Southeast. We will not be talking about each state, but we will be talking about the things that happen within our Southeast region. Next slide. The first state is Florida. Florida Quality Assurance Initiative was to enhance investigative quality. Florida Adult Protective Services has developed a new cloud-based quality assurance review process focused on case outcomes and verification rates, leveraging QA as a tool for discovering training topics for investigators. The plan includes creating 4 types of QAs tailored to different case types: financial exploitation, in-home-based abuse, neglect, institutional investigation, and self-neglect. To track specific actions and policy requirements, additional program specialists will conduct QA reviews across regions, including their own, to promote cross-training, share best practices, and ensure overall investigative quality. Next slide. Georgia, the state that I represent. Georgia prepared for an in-person all-day staff meeting, launched the forensic interviewing for individuals with disabilities training for all staff, completed training presented by the National Adult Protective Services Training Center on field supervisors as trainers in strength-based leadership. Next slide. Kentucky APS created a concrete support system to help at least 346 adults maintain their independence in the least restrictive environment. In addition, all staff were provided with opportunities to increase their investigative interviewing skills through 4 types of forensic interviewing trainings. Kentucky APS also successfully launched a public-facing dashboard. Next slide. Mississippi. Mississippi planned its WEAAD refresher training with Paul Neiman on June the 10th and 11th, where they will bring in their entire APS staff for training. Mississippi have 7 regions. Each region is planning to do its own WEAAD Day activities, including the state office. Each region is being provided with WEAAD bookmarks, flyers, tablecloths, freestanding WEAAD stands, and the purple ribbons. Each region was challenged to be as creative and innovative as they wanted to be in the area. Several regions plan to include their MDT members, partners, MPDDs, senior centers, and etc. in a central community area within their region. Several regions are planning activities Friday because the 15th falls on a Saturday this year. Now I'm going to turn it over to Renee, who will finish the presentation.
Thank you, Kathy. And I apologize earlier. I guess I was double muted, so no one heard me, but I'm Renee Bushline. I am the Director for Adult Protective Services here in Tennessee. So I'll start with South Carolina. They launched a South Carolina Adult Needs and Vulnerability Assessment tool that will be used by all APS staff statewide. This assessment tool will replace outdated tools in the case management system and will help case managers identify needs, strengths, risk, vulnerability, and maltreatment. Next slide. All right, here in Tennessee, with our ARPA money, we did several things. One of the things is we purchased 4 structured decision-making tools to help improve the efficiency and consistency to better serve and protect Tennessee's vulnerable adults. We also established what we call the CREST program here in Tennessee. It's the Collaborative Response to End Self-Neglect in Tennessee. It provides short-term case management and emergency financial assistance for those who are self-neglecting. And then we also have some WEAAD activities, some conferences, but we also have a 5K run that's going to be held on June the 15th and a shredded event where people can bring their confidential papers and shred it safely. Next slide. Virginia, they launched a public-facing dashboard. They also plan to implement an electronic APS reporting portal. And lastly, they are growing their catalog of e-learning and virtual training for their APS workers. All right, last but not least, West Virginia, they launched a gerontology practitioner certificate course in partnership with West Virginia University for staff statewide. It has been successful and data shows a significant increase in the knowledge gained for staff. West Virginia also began training for the Adult Needs and Strengths Assessment this summer. This assessment was completed in partnership with Marshall University and the WEAAD Foundation. And then lastly, they launched a statewide APS commercial campaign to spread awareness of abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation and how to report it. They will conduct a virtual seminar for WEAAD that provides continuing education for social workers, attorneys, nurses, nursing home administrators, and domestic violence advocates. And I just want to thank you all for giving us the opportunity to highlight all the successes for our Southeast states. Back to you, Angela.
Thank you, Renee and Kathy. All right, next up is the Southwest region, and we have Kez with us today.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kez Wold, the Adult Protective Services Associate Commissioner for the state of Texas. And I'm speaking for the Southwest region, which includes the states of Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana, Arkansas, and my home state of Texas. Hopefully at this point, you are able to see my screen.
Confirmed.
Excellent. We took a different approach. We're going to highlight just a couple of the many multiple projects that we've been working on. For example, New Mexico, I know, is smack dab in the middle of preparing and planning for the NAPSA conference. And here in Texas, we're also planning for our annual conference in October. And I do want to start out with an apology to the state of Oklahoma. I noticed that we accidentally superimposed our state seal on their first 2 slides. So please rest assured it is not an attempt to violate the Red River Boundary Compact. This is not Texas taking over. So sorry to Oklahoma. The state of Oklahoma wanted to highlight some videos that they have prepared. They took an approach where they developed several videos, and these videos are specifically targeted. There's a general video for the public, and then there are videos for law enforcement, for general community partners. There's a specific one for Medicaid that focuses on what can be done to assist residents in nursing facilities where there are barriers to approval with Medicaid. And each of these videos runs about 5 minutes. I am going to attempt to share just a few minutes of one of the videos. So let's see if we can do that here. It's at their website. These are posted year-round. And we'll watch just a couple of minutes of the Oklahoma Community Partners video.
Services that serves vulnerable adults age 18 and older who need assistance because of abuse, neglect, self-neglect, or financial exploitation. APS helps vulnerable adults connect to the services they need so they can stay safely in their homes and communities whenever possible. A vulnerable adult is someone who is 18 years of age or older and is incapacitated or has a substantial impairment. When assessing for substantial impairment, APS needs to know if the adult is able to provide for their own self-care or custody, manage their own property and finances, meet essential requirements for their mental or physical health or safety, or protect themselves from maltreatment without assistance. APS investigates caretaker abuse, caretaker neglect, caretaker exploitation, financial neglect, abandonment, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, and personal degradation. It also investigates non-caretaker exploitation and self-neglect. Each type of maltreatment, other than self-neglect and non-caretaker exploitation, requires that the alleged perpetrator be a caretaker of the vulnerable adult. A caretaker is an individual responsible for providing care or managing finances for a vulnerable adult. A caretaker can be a family member, friend, volunteer, or someone who is being paid to provide care for the individual. They can also be a legal guardian or conservator. Something to keep in mind is if someone is married to or lives with a vulnerable adult, they may not necessarily be the adult's caretaker. There are multiple warning signs that a vulnerable adult may be experiencing maltreatment or abuse. These include unexplained or untreated bruises or injuries, inappropriate administration of medication, recent changes in behavior, isolation, contradictory statements, implausible stories, hesitation to talk openly, confusion or
Hopefully that gives you folks a taste of these professionally produced and very informative videos that the state of Oklahoma has put in place, and they are available on their website. Really exciting stuff. Did want to spend just a couple of minutes speaking about some changes in APS training that have occurred here in Texas. We'll see if I can move forward. Oh, I moved way too forward. So did want to talk briefly about our training while working model that was funded using ARPA dollars. We began planning in March of 22, but starting in September of 2023, we rolled out and implemented a new training program for the entire state, including the hire of eventually what turned into 25 training supervisor positions who provide hands-on training to our new staff. Our new worker training, although robust, had not been really updated or changed in 20 years. We wanted to focus on providing more intensive on-the-job training, less time in the classroom. We also wanted to reduce the amount of time it took to train new staff. And one unique thing in Texas, new staff could not provide services or provide workload support until they were fully trained on every aspect of adult protective services, which meant our new staff were sitting for about 6 months without being able to contribute to the workload. And with turnover being 50% or above 50% with our first year employees, that was a true problem for us. We also added a competency requirement so that at every stage in training, staff are needing to prove their competency before they're able to take on assignments or continue working with the agency. This is just an outline of the process. There are 3 sections to it: the case initiation training, the initial face-to-face, and then the all other aspects of APS. At these 3 points, they are required to pass tests and exam and to prove competency, or else we have a conversation about whether or not this is the job for them. Very quick comparison. I think the highlights here are our training previously took 6 months from start to finish to full case assignability. The new training is 4.5 months. We've cut the time by 7 days, the time spent in classroom. We've incredibly increased the amount of time spent in fields training. And I want to highlight that 170 field observations and 170 field demonstrations that every employee has to do in order to become fully competent. And then the most important thing perhaps for us is they're able to receive at least partial field assignments 30 days after hire rather than waiting a full 77 days. And just some information, some data for you. I think what's really exciting for us is that we now, at this point, this is preliminary data, but we're retaining about 81% of those new employees in that first year compared to previously, like I said, 50 or more % turnover. So we're really excited about that. And then at the bottom there, you can see these are the number of contacts that the program between the training supervisor and the trainee, these are the contacts that they have conducted. And so they have conducted over 8,000 contacts that would have had to have been conducted by tenured staff. Now our newer staff are able to contribute more quickly. So we're really excited about this, and we hope to, in a few months, have a more complete data analysis. And thank you guys for your time. It's been an exciting opportunity to speak with you about all the great things that are going on in the Southwest region. And I will stop sharing my screen this time around.
Great. Thank you so much, Kez. All right. Next up is West 1 region. And my California County partners will be joining me to cover our slides. Jennifer, thank you for getting those slides up for us. All right. Next slide. We'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hey, good. Well, still morning here in California. Good morning. I'm John Hartmeyer. I'm the APS unit manager for the state of California Department of Social Services. And I'm going to give you a quick little background of APS in California. APS was started here in California in 1982, given a big shot in the arm in 1999. And then in 2011, the big change came when administration of APS was handed off to the counties. So instead of APS being state administered, it is administered by the 58 counties in California. Next slide, please. The trend recently in California, as with most of the country, has been the graying of America. California elder population is growing rapidly, 7% from the 4 years between 2017 and 2021. The number of seniors seeking APS services during that time increased by 84%. And the latest stats show that 43% of California's homeless in adult-only households are at least 50 years of age. Next slide. In response to that, the program was enacted in 2018 called Home Safe, which essentially infused money to APS to deal with the housing crisis. It started with a pilot program, 11 counties. And then with the success being monitored in 2021, it expanded to all counties with a budget of $92.5 million. I will now hand it off to my counterparts, colleagues, who will discuss what the counties could do with that money and what they did do. Next slide.
Hello, everyone. I am Karen Bone. I supervise adult protective services in Placer County, and this is how Home Safe made a difference in our community. It began with a single report of self-neglect of finances of an elder. His household income dramatically reduced after the death of his spouse, and he had received a code violation on his home. APS investigated and confirmed the client was in financial duress and facing a housing insecurity. We then discovered that this senior mobile home park was just code inspected, and in fact, 161 homes were found in violation. Non-action to the violation would result in final notices that allowed park owner to pursue eviction of the residents. Most of these repairs were dry rot safety issues, such as stairs and deck hazards. Additionally, there were concerns raised because there were contractors providing drastically varying estimates. We were just a two-person Home Safe team and potentially looking at 161 elders at risk. We needed help. We convened a state-level, multi-divisional problem-solving meeting to raise awareness of the barriers that these seniors were facing to address these violations, which includes such things as their inability to navigate their online website or even transportation to get down to the office. As a result, we collaborated and regulators immediately ceased all the violation timelines for these residents. And they even shared additional funding opportunities for mobile home park revitalization. And our state contractors board, they provided tips on hiring contractors and red flag warnings. Our APS team then disseminated these resources to the mobile home park residents. Because of this home safe early intervention at this park, only 9 clients required the financial support of our program. Mobile home parks offer affordable housing options to seniors. It's important to preserve these communities. And HomeSafe allowed us the opportunity to both raise awareness of accessibility barriers faced by seniors, but also restoring housing security, and even more, building the partnerships to enhance overall quality of service. Next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Valerie Smith. I am an APS program manager in Santa Clara County, California. The Home Safe program in our county, we were a part of the pilot statewide, and we were excited to be a part of it because we had noticed over the years that many APS clients did not meet the eligibility level or level of need for traditional housing and homelessness programs. With the money from Home Safe, we were able to partner with a community-based independent living center that serves people with disabilities and older adults. And we teamed up as a multidisciplinary team with a rapid response component. And one of our successes is a case scenario of an 80-year-old APS client that was referred to us for self-neglect. They had a home that they had owned for over 40 years that was in a bad state of needing repairs. The roof was falling in, there was no running water or electricity, and it was excessively cluttered. The individual was actually living in a tent in the backyard because the home was inaccessible. In addition, they had no reliable source of food. Code enforcement had been to the home a number of times to try and engage with this client, and they were unable to do so. So they were moving towards completely red tagging the home and demolishing it. Neighbors were also complaining of blight. So with the partnership with the community-based agency, we were able to provide intensive case management, engage the client who agreed to work with us, and help develop a plan to actually get the home repaired. And we were able to pay to reinstate the utilities, purchase new appliances and furniture. We also provided additional referral and application assistance and in coordination with caregiving services. The client is now living in their home with care, and code enforcement has closed their case. This example highlights that HomeSafe is one way APS can build strong support for elders and enhance the quality of life by repairing and maintaining existing housing. Thank you. Next slide.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elise Vigil. I'm the Adult Services Manager over in San Joaquin County. One of the things that the reason we had us as a group decided to bring up is Home Safe as one of our solutions to addressing older adults and disabled adults challenges is the flexibility it gives. Home Safe has been successful because it provides us with the flexibility for each county to use the funding in ways that best meets the needs of the clients we serve. We had one case that we'd like to highlight is where we were working with a 65 and an 81-year-old couple who were renting a mobile home. The mobile home was actually red tagged. The owners had not been making repairs. We were able, through the Home Safe, put them up in temporary housing while we looked for other housing alternative. The interesting thing is that housing may be one piece of the puzzle, but as we learned in this particular couple, as we through the ability to case manage, which was for us was something new because we have been in the past, we go in, we do an investigation, we make referrals, and we go out. In this particular case with HomeSafe, we were actually able to build a rapport. We learned that language was a barrier. This couple was from the Middle East. English was very difficult. Things that we thought they were understanding, they weren't. We've learned that the spouse, one of them, had extensive mental health challenges that had been unaddressed. And we also learned that both the Mr. and the Mrs. had been significantly neglecting their medical well-being, not for intent, but for lack of access to services. What we ended up doing is we contracted with nonprofits to provide person-centered case management, legal services, and housing navigation system. Next slide, please. And just to kind of give a little bit of a highlight, what we have found is that housing is a big need in the community, as most of us know already, but there also are many times other issues and challenges that have been undetected, unaddressed. Not only did that couple that we had encountered with, one thing that we found out is that due to the mental health being untreated for so long, there was instances of domestic violence. So we would never have really got to the root of everything and provide appropriate services had we not had the opportunity to really get involved. We carried that case for almost 9 months, and that's how long it took to make sure that the one of the clients received the mental health services that was culturally appropriate, sensitive to their needs, as well as the medical and housing stabilizing services. So as a quick snapshot, through our HomeSafe, we, unlike Valerie in the other county, we started in 2022, and about middle of 2022, we have seen temporary housing due to lack of affordability, eviction, unsafe housing. We've done deposit assistance, rental assistance, housing navigation, and the biggest component of this has been our case management services. That's where we really been able to get to the nitty-gritty and see what is the need and what are the services that can best meet the clients where they are. How do we do that without not inserting ourselves? Because we all know if we don't have the buy-in from the client, our odds of being successful are diminished. So I wanted to share that. And with that, I want to pass it on to the next person.
Great, thank you. My name's Angela Rosado, and I have the pleasure of serving as Riverside County's Elder Abuse Forensic Center Coordinator. I think it's so important to highlight not only the need for funding for these types of programs, but also the collaboration that must occur within our multidisciplinary teams. Here in Riverside County, we do have a multidisciplinary team that's homeless focused. Ultimately, HomeSafe is specifically designed for APS programs. HomeSafe programs and funds are as unique as the residents and the 58 counties here in California. HomeSafe was used to purchase mobile homes, create emergency housing, repair and maintenance of existing housing, and lastly, supports the safety and housing stability of individuals, provided housing-related assistance using evidence-based practices for homelessness, prevention, and assistance. The HomeSafe model is California's approach, which supports the safety, well-being, and social justice for older adults and adults with disabilities to live their full lives free from abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. Stable housing is a foundational and necessary component for APS clients to thrive, maintain wellness, and age in place. Housing programs like SAFE are essential to building a strong support for our elders. Okay, thank you. Next, we will move on to West 2 region, and Mandy and Ariana will be joining us.
Thank you, Angela. Hello, everybody. My name is Mandy Buckley, and I am a care coordinator and a program manager, and I am from Northern Utah. And today I am thrilled to talk about our self-neglect pilot project. This is something that Utah has decided to highlight for today. Our Utah Adult Protective Services actually launched this pilot project in September of 2023. We have 2.5 full-time care coordinators that are currently paid through the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, so ARPA funding. And the plan is to really keep the program going long-term through Medicaid claiming. Our self-neglect pilot project really helps coordinate services for people who have recently had their self-neglect case closed. Why we're doing it, we're trying to proactively address each person's unique needs by preventing future self-neglect and reducing repeat cases. We're trying to connect people to services that improve their quality of life and reduce their risk of abuse, neglect, and exploitation, and by empowering that person's choice to build community connections and supports. Before this project was started, Utah Adult Protective Services, their investigative team, could use care coordination to make case referrals, and they did. However, they didn't make as many referrals as we expected. And so APS as a whole wanted to see how many people would accept care coordination once they knew they weren't being investigated, but rather being offered services and help through a service delivery approach. And who can receive care coordination? So it's offered statewide. People can receive the service if they're a vulnerable adult of any age or any capacity level. If they have a closed self-neglect case with APS that was determined either supported or inconclusive. What is care coordination? For Utah, that includes and starts with first educating our potential clients about the benefits of care coordination, and then offering them a choice of services, even the choice to be part of the program. So they may accept or decline that, and we do respect that person's right to make their own choices. It also includes locating and accessing local, state, and federal resources and programs to connect to our clients. This may include help with applying for services when needed and finding that short-term assistance for when they are placed on waiting lists. We develop a person-centered service plan, and care coordination is guided by the person's needs, strengths, goals, wishes, and desired outcomes. When developing our service plans, the care coordinator works to find the most appropriate services and resources to meet all of the unique needs of each client, of each person that we serve. I'm really happy to say that our care coordination program aligns with our agency model, our Utah Department of Health and Human Services vision that ensures that all Utahns have fair and equitable opportunities to safe and healthy lives. Next slide. As far as the process goes for our post-investigative care coordination, it first starts with our business analysts will generate a list of closed self-neglect cases from the previous week. And then our program administrator will screen those cases to determine if the case is appropriate for care coordination. So she looks at evaluation of findings, services offered by the investigator already, and their risk assessment. And then at that point, our care coordinators are assigned cases and they contact the client by phone initially to offer services. If they're not able to be reached by phone, we do try to reach them also by mail and other means when possible. And the person at that point can accept or decline care coordination. And then our care coordinators work with the client to develop that person-centered service plan to connect them to services over a period of about 60 days. And we may extend that if needed. And then at the conclusion, a care coordination outcome survey is completed about 30 days after care coordination services have been completed to evaluate how the connection was, satisfaction, and well-being of the people that we serve. As far as data, looking at this pilot project from September 2023 through March of 2024, 313 clients were offered care coordination services, and that covers the state of Utah. 95% or 30% accepted the services, And another 23% of what we call active decline. So they actively decline the service, saying that at this time they did not want to participate in the pilot project. And then we have a 47% decline, and that is what we call our passive decline. And that's for individuals that we weren't able to get a hold of by phone or by mail or other means when we reached out to them. Our average client age is 70 and is 52% female and about 48% male. And now I would love Ariana to show you a powerful story about how the program really helps the people that we serve.
Good afternoon. My name is Ariana Patterson. I'm a care coordinator with the Self-Neglect Utah APS pilot project. So our top service items that we come across that people need is food, Medicaid assistance, applications or renewals, and also housing. So during our service planning, we do come across challenges, but of course we're looking for those solutions. And one common challenge is that the client doesn't have Medicaid, and typically our clients are overwhelmed with the Medicaid process, and they usually don't have the technological means to apply electronically. So the solution is that we partner with a nonprofit group in Utah called Utah Health Policy Project. And so this is a nonprofit group that provides application assistance in multiple languages for Medicaid and also case management throughout the eligibility process. So the benefit to this is that if the client qualifies, then they will provide that ongoing assistance with renewals or reviews to maintain their coverage. And this, of course, allows the client to be supported long after care coordination services have ended, and they'll have that support too through that renewal process. So we have lots of positive outcome stories, and one we wanted to share was Susan's story. So Susan and her husband lost their home in September 2023 due to a rent increase that was unmanageable. She was the full-time caregiver for her husband, who was disabled because of a stroke. And because of the rent increase, this left them unhoused. They were living in and out of motels, intermittently on the streets. And in October 2023, she actually fractured her hip caring for her husband. She refused treatment because she was afraid he'd have no caregiver. But however, in November 2023, they both got COVID, and this landed Susan's husband in long-term care. However, she remained unhoused. She was alone without her husband, afraid and vulnerable, and at the same time, she had to give up her beloved kitty of 18 years for fostering. She was living in and out of homeless shelters with deplorable conditions, motels when she could afford it, the streets, and just several weeks in a shed in the dead of winter in northern Utah. She had no family or friends she could rely on for support, struggling with sobriety, anxiety and depression, pain because of her untreated hip fracture, and diabetes. So in December 2023, this is when Susan agreed to care coordination through the self-neglect pilot program. So the main outcome was that Susan and her husband were able to obtain a brand new ADA one-bedroom Section 42 apartment, but there were various service items that had to be accomplished along the way that Susan was able to overcome so many obstacles to reach that ultimate goal. So she was able to obtain her Social Security card. APS helped with the deposit assistance. She renewed her state ID. She reunited with her beloved kitty. We helped her find reliable transportation for medical and non-medical needs, find food resources for herself and her cat, free and accessible mental health care support, critical and urgent medical assistance, a new primary care doctor, emergency prescription refills, a sponsor because she renewed her sobriety to Narcotics Anonymous, a smoking cessation program, Medicaid renewal assistance, and because of her limited income and our amazing trainer, Megan, we helped get her Medicaid spousal impoverishment provision. So during that time, she often told me that she felt all alone facing the world, and I was the only person that helped her from giving up. and she sweetly called her apartment Ariana's heart because she now had a stable home environment. She's making new friends and supportive connections in her community. She's taking control of her health and her life, and she's planning for that necessary hip surgery. At the end of her hip surgery, she's rehabbing with her husband in the skilled nursing facility he's in, and then they will discharge home together and they'll go home to their new apartment. When I met Susan, she felt helpless and hopeless, but at the end of self-neglect care coordination, she says she feels happy and hopeful. The long-term, the takeaway from this is that short-term care coordination provides long-term solutions to give clients ongoing benefits to help improve their quality of life. Thank you for listening to our program.
Thank you, Mandy and Ariana. And a special thanks to all of our regional reps who are on today, our APS colleagues. I think this is just a great overview of the important programs and highlights that are taking place throughout the nation. These are making a difference in the lives of the older adults and vulnerable adults we serve. So I'll pass it back to Jennifer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, those kind of cases when that make the decisions about purse strings, let's hope they see how complicated they are. I mean, the things, it's not just putting in an aid and leaving it be, it's doing so much more. So last but not least, I'd like to introduce a few very special guests. Joe Applebaum, Stu Maddox, and Vicki Parker from the Clowder Group are here. They have produced several impactful social impact films such as Gen Silent, All the Lonely People, and they are now producing a film called The Heroes of Adult Protection. And this film highlights APS and the multidisciplinary fields that APS works with to support our clients. So without further ado, I'll let these guys take it away.
Thank you, Jennifer. I guess we're the icing on the cake.
You are the icing.
It's been a great morning and afternoon. So many things that we've learned, and also just how polished everybody is. You should all congratulate yourself. As Jennifer said, my name is Stu Maddox. I'm a lifelong filmmaker with a social impact filmmaking company called the Clowder Group. Clowder is a group of cats. I'll just get that out of the way. Our projects are designed to create change in communities around issues that affect each of us. And you may have seen us at NAPSA's national conference or heard through the grapevine that, as Jennifer mentioned, we are partnering with NAPSA and other organizations around the country to spotlight the work and the priorities of adult protective services. In honor of WEAAD, we have this first look at one of the stories that we are sharing. We will then hear from the producer of this project and the co-founder of the Clowder Group, Joe Applebaum. And we also get to hear today from the project's social impact producer, Vicki Parker. So, as mentioned, HOPE is the working title of this project. We will be working to create a series on PBS stations. By the way, All the Lonely People that was presented at NAPSA 2 years ago in Grand Rapids will be on PBS next year in 2025 as part of Loneliness Awareness Week. So we wanted to give you that update that these just don't go away. They have a long life. HOPE will also be a documentary available, as I said, on PBS, but also for you for awareness building and recruitment in your areas. And this morning, we're pleased to bring you a short teaser of our story about 84-year-old Daisy Barrett, who is a survivor of financial and emotional abuse. We work closely with the Oregon Department of Human Services Aging and People with Disabilities program on this particular case. Let's take a look.
I never saw anybody exploited so hard, so fast, and so callously in my life.
Cindy and her husband never imagined that they would be more than just good neighbors to Mountain Daisy.
She lived there her whole life. That was where she felt safest.
The family believes that it's not safe for her to be up on the mountain by herself. So relatives have moved in to take care of her.
And Daisy couldn't get him to leave.
I'm an investigator with Adult Protective Services. We realized that there was a whole nother story to this.
Her relatives have really moved in to cut down the trees and sell the lumber.
She had been told all we'd have to do is drop a match next to your cabin. That'd be it.
She would get a restraining order and then they could never find him to serve him.
In the fall of 2018, Cindy looks up at Daisy's mountain and she sees smoke.
I just went, oh my God, there's a fire.
Keeping the nephew away becomes a matter of life or death. Everyone involved heads to Daisy's mountain to stop him.
Laura could say.
I'm not sure if you caught the last few seconds of that, but basically, thanks to the work of a lot of people and a multidisciplinary team, Daisy was able to live out her life on her property. And this is a 30-minute story, and you're seeing the storytelling and the polished production, which we feel is necessary for audiences mainstream to find this docuseries and film compelling and to watch. What you don't see as much of in this little clip, but is threaded throughout the project, are the messaging points about the need for national standards, about multidisciplinary teams, adequate, reliable funding, and also teaching points for the general public about abuse in its many forms. So we call these in our work the Trojan horses, the takeaways people get. They just didn't really think that they were going to get when they tuned in for a really good story. So I'd like to turn it now over to the project's producer, Joe Applebaum, for more.
Thanks, Stu. Hi, I'm Joe Applebaum. I'm, as Stu said, the co-founder of the Clouder Group and producer of this project. And we are just absolutely thrilled to be here. This project is near and dear to our hearts, so giving you guys a first little taste of it today is really exciting for us. The Hope Project started following, as Stu said, following a screening of our film on loneliness, All the Lonely People. And Lori Delagrammaticus and Jennifer approached us about working, partnering on this project to really highlight all of the aspects of work that APS workers take on. I mean, it's just astounding, and it needs to be brought out into the open because as we have learned that a lot of people just really don't understand what APS does or why there's even a need. So our goal through this project, a series of stories, is to educate, create awareness, and recruitment. And we also want to be able, Lori made it very clear that one of the objectives needs to be to create something that we can put under the noses of decision makers in state legislatures who control budgets. We started off making a feature film, but as I said, there are so many aspects of the work that APS does that Stu and I quickly decided that this needed to be a feature film wasn't going to do it. It needed to be a docu-series. So we're picking 6 to 8 cases that best represent the work of APS across the country. So far we're partnering with a number of states: Oregon, Washington State, New York State, Massachusetts, hello Nancy, and the County Welfare Directors Association of California to date to get this series done. We've been shooting since last June in Oregon, Massachusetts, and most recently in Syracuse, New York. Production will continue into early 2025 when we expect to have the project completed. There are still opportunities for new partners to help fund our social impact campaign. So maybe we'll find some other people that are excited and want to jump on in. The water's great. On that note, I want to turn it over to our social impact producer, Vicki Parker. Vicki, take it away.
Thank you very much. Hello to everyone, and hello to all those people I already know. It's nice to see such familiar faces. I am here to talk about some of the social impact we are planning and what our goals are. This definitely, as you have heard, is our passion project, and what the 4 non-negotiables are: we want sustainable funding, we want national standards, we want to bring awareness and education to these things, not only to the higher ups, but to the general public and recruitment. The way we're going to do that is we are going to center everything around 24 community outreach screenings that are going to be all over the United States and opened up to APS and partners first on our calendars, and trying to get that to premiere there. Through that, we will be able to be in communities, in your community, and reach people directly at a grassroots level. We have the recruitment video that we're doing, and that is going to be invaluable, not only for internal use, but to go out to those future candidates of APS workers, social workers, people who can have a real representation of what it's like to be in the APS world. And of course, we're going to be spotlighting APS and bringing awareness and education through all of our efforts, all of our presentations, and all of our social media. We, as mentioned, still have HOPE funding opportunities as well as some story opportunities. And if you are interested in finding out more about any of that, you can contact either Joe Applebaum or myself. I have given Jennifer and in the chat our information to put up for everyone. Also, I would like, if anyone is interested in having a clip presentation or trying to book for one of those early releases in 2025, please contact me, Vicki Parker. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate all of you, and I'm going to hit it back to Jennifer. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all so much. We saved the icing for last. So thank you again to all of you who have attended, and oh, did you all mention you'll be in Albuquerque, so you'll get to see more of the heroes of APS in Albuquerque. But
Yes.
thank you to all of you who have attended. I know 2 hours is a chunk of time out of an APS day, and thanks again to the NAPSA regions, because they really worked hard highlighting the incredible work they've done in so many APS programs. And much appreciation again to JP Morgan Chase. The recording of this event will be on the NAPSA website eventually, and there will also be a document put together with all the regional information. I saw some chats about, where's the PowerPoint. So we'll get all this information together in one cohesive document, and the questions that have been raised, we will include in that document too. So don't forget about the 35th annual NAPSA conference, September 16th to 18th in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Registration's opened, and please submit a nomination for an award. The awards are open through the end of this month, and we've been receiving nominations, but we like to have a big pool to choose from, and it's really something for your workers to get a national award. So hope you all enjoy the many, many events in honor of World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, and thank you for joining us in our kickoff here. Have a good rest of your day.